This clip was recorded on a field recorder, and as such, I've kind of kept the levels fairly low on it. You've got a lot of headroom with a device like that because you've got good quality preamps and you can keep the level quite low. The only problem is when you come to actually playing it back on something a little bit more normal, like a phone or some device like that, it's really, really quiet in comparison to other music. So of course you want to sort of push this level up, and the obvious tool to use first of all is probably normalize. But the problem with normalize is it's only really looking at peak amplitude of the clip. If we take a small sample of this clip like this and do a quick scan on that, and we can see over here on the left that the peak amplitude is around the minus 10 dB sort of area, which is okay. So you could increase by just 10 dB overall. But if you do a normalize, it's going to find this one here. If I do a scan on that, we've got minus 1.58 dB is the peak amplitude. So the problem there, of course, is that normalize, if you increase it, will only increase it by a maximum of 1.58 dB. And that's not really going to do very much. You can go through and pick out all these slightly higher peaks here where maybe somebody knocked the field recorder. Not that I would do anything as stupid as that, or somebody sneezed into the microphone or something like that. And you can find all those. You could drop the level down on those and use normalize, or you can just take your bets, place your bets, and increase the overall level of the clip using this here and just using a standard amplify effect. What I prefer to do in these situations is one of two things. The first scenario, which I'm just going to show you in my mixer here, is effectively something that they have a nice little feature they have in the mixer here. It's just a simple auto level, so you can shove the gain up to something really quite wild, because we know that clip is fairly low, so we could push this up to like to 13 dB of gain, but have a really slow rise time on it of about 10 seconds, so that it sort of adjusts itself quite quickly, but then it takes really long time to recover. And because you don't really know, because in this particular vocal track you don't really know what the original volume was like, you don't really notice it because it's gradual and it's nice and it's over time. That's one way of doing it, and that works well for some situations. Wouldn't work well for music, of course, because you'd be left with a big section that's really quiet. So the best way of dealing with these overall is to use a hard limiter. And that's what we're going to do today, and that's what is in Audition. So I can just go to here and I can apply a clip in here and go to amplitude and compression and hard limiter. And you'll see that you've got a maximum amplitude, and in most cases, as it is here, I would set that to -1. I think I talk in other videos about the reason I would use -1 over 0 dB, but you can set that to whatever you want it to be. And of course, with a hard limiter, you have an input boost. You have that increase in volume that you want this to be pushed up by. So it won't sort of work miracles. You can only take this particular one to 50 dB, but if you've got a recording that's down at kind of minus 50 dB, you're probably not going to want to increase it much more than that. So in this case, we could say a pretty generous 16. Let's try 15 dB, just because it's a nice round number, and for some reason people like nice round numbers. It's annoying, I can't get it at 15 exactly. So with a hard limiter, you have look ahead, so that the clip and the effect is actually looking ahead in time to find these peaks. So at this point, it will know in advance that it has to act on something, and it will do that. I'm never really sure what the benefit is of having, say, 10 milliseconds versus 14 milliseconds as far as look ahead is concerned. I kind of would have thought that it either knows something's coming up or it doesn't. I'm not absolutely sure how that benefits. So, as long as you're talking about in the future, and as long as you have some look ahead, that's okay. And now here's where the main difference is between the first one I showed you there on the mixer and this. The release time on a hard limiter of this type can be really, really quick. This one only actually goes down to 40 milliseconds, but you could have this set to something like 10 milliseconds. You might start to get some noticeable artifacts there, but the way in which I'm using this means that you're only actually doing anything with the limiter very, very occasionally. It's not a compressor. You haven't got a kind of threshold point and a ratio. It's just basically increasing the volume of the clip until it hits something that is above a certain point. So what you want to do is listen to it as you're playing it through, sort of go along and sort of, if I just put this in the clip here and play this back. Now, you won't be able to hear the clip itself, but what you can see is that even though my level is set to -1 dB, we're never really hitting -1 dB, very occasionally, and that's exactly how you want it to be. You don't want it to be hitting it often. So if I push the input boost up to say 25 dB, so you can start to see now that we're really hitting that maximum all the time. And what that's going to generate is a pumping effect. You're going to start to really get a sort of a compressed sound on that. And that's not what we're after here. We're not looking to use the limiter as a compressor. We're looking to use it just to limit occasional peaks. So you need to find your right level for this clip. So maybe something around that, maybe something around 17 dB, because we're going frequently up into this nice high level where it's good. You're going to have nice audible stuff, but you're hardly ever hitting this -1. Okay, we did have maybe had a couple there. Maybe that's a little bit too much. Take that back just a little bit. And there we can apply that, and we've got a release time of 40 milliseconds. So I'm just going to close that down. Stop my clip and hit my apply. I mean, you don't have to do it this way, but you can just do this straight through the effects section if you want. And what you see there is you've still got all your dynamics intact. You haven't got anything that's like a sort of flat waveform that's been mastered. It's had the crap mastered out of it, and all the leveling is, it's just one flat bunch of sound energy. This still has all its dynamics, which is the beautiful side of this particular clip. The particular recording I'm talking about here is a recording of my son and his nana just chatting with each other, and the fact that it has very quiet points and louder points and people commenting in the background and things, and is nice. You don't want those to be brought up and like have this sudden like sucking up of the background noise. You don't want that. And so that's exactly what this does. As long as you're not hitting that peak very often, it just trims off those bits where, somebody's made that sneeze or knocked the microphone or whatever, just tidies it all up and brings all the rest of the level back very nicely to a listenable volume, but keeping all your dynamics intact. That's how I would go about it. There are different ways of doing all this kind of stuff. There's, all sorts of little tricks. You can do this using a compressor if you set it up right, but this, just using a hard limiter in this way, usually works pretty nicely. And it's all in Adobe Audition, that effect. You don't need to use any third-party stuff for that. There are third-party ones that do it nicer, in my opinion, but this works great. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you use to do this, and if you've learned anything today. If you've got any other ideas for videos, let me know, and hit the like button, subscribe, or whatever, and I will catch you soon.